Today, I talked to an amazing entrepreneur who understands how to grow a stronger, smarter, and more profitable business. I'm John DeLaurier, former company owner and co-founder of ProLine CRM. Today, we're talking with Dean Talley, co-founder of the Smart Tarp Company. We're going to talk about innovation of an industry that often resists change. Dean shares how Smart Tarp grew 480% in a single year by turning a necessary part of the job site, protection, into a powerful lead generation tool with dynamic QR codes that outperform yard signs by 300%. We discussed the vital sales philosophy that the value must exceed the price. This was huge for me. And why old school methodologies like canned presentations are actually the key to creating consistency and retaining salespeople. Dean emphasizes that without a standardization process, you aren't building a sales team. You're just hoping for a lucky hit. Dean also delivers some hard truths about ego and failure, dropping the powerful reminder that the risk of insult is the price of clarity. You want to know why some contractors are scaling while some others are just treading water. You need to hear this. Let's get into it. First of all, Dean, introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, background. I know about you, and I've met you a couple times.
Yep.
Tell the audience what's up.
Yeah, so obviously my name is Dean Talley, and I am the co-founder with my wife of the Smart Tarp Company. So we are the only custom printed tarp manufacturer for the roofing and construction industry in the U.S., and we're incredibly proud of that. We're just finishing up our third season, but really 2.5 seasons. And so this is, was a fantastic year, but, and a lot of people are familiar with us, but a lot of people aren't from that perspective. So, hopefully we'll talk about that and a lot of other things today. But it's that's who we are and what we do. So
we'll love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I've known about Smart Tarps for a little bit from other roofing contractors before I sold my business. And we were talking about how 2025 was kind of a long year. Let's kind of just unpack that a little bit because like what you just said, a lot of people know about ProLine, but a lot of people don't. So we're kind of like in that similar growth stage. We've been around for you can call it 5 to 6 years, but the last 2 years have really been our biggest growth. So talk to me about your customer base and what you're seeing with your customers.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy year. Like, we had just briefly kind of touched on a little bit. It seemed like, 2024 was crazy for us. We grew 480% in a single year, which was amazing and blessed and everything else, but also unbelievably stressful. This year, we kind of expected the same thing. And then it was kind of unique. When I look back at 2025, it seems like the customer base and all of the roofers that we dealt with, everybody kind of fell into one of two buckets, right? You had guys that were at a size and scalability that they continued to grow, had great years, and it really didn't slow them down. And then you had other guys that just felt like, my God, we're doing everything we can, and all we're doing is, treading water this year. And then, of course, you had guys. I was just on the phone with one of our customers last night, a young guy who, knows that, this is the 9th startup that my wife and I have done together in the last 38 years. So I understand what failure is. And so he called me last night and just said, hey, I'm about ready to put my company in bankruptcy. And I'm like, well, shit, dude, what the hell happened? And we talked, and I had to say, dude, don't worry about it. It happens. It happened to me. It's happened to me multiple damn times. But you learn, you live, and you go forward, But from our perspective, we still 2x'd, we doubled what we did in 2024. And that was, that's great. And, we expect to have another great year next year. But the roofing industry just continues to change, as you and I both know. And the agency side of it continues to change dramatically. AI is having a huge impact on how that whole space works and lead generation and cultivation and nurturing, all of those different things. And that's obviously, a lot of my customers are your customers. One of our bigger customers when we first started in 2024, I think, was Scott T-Bay with roof leaks, with rain stoppers,
Mm-hmm.
who, it was ordered from us multiple times. And then ironically enough, another cohort of yours that does the podcast with Allie, John Starry,
Mm-hmm.
actually just placed an order with us yesterday. So
Sweet.
and that's something John and I have been playing phone tag to try to get an order put together for him for 2 years. It was irony that just, obviously that we just finally got him taken care of yesterday. But, from my perspective, the industry itself, I had not been in the roofing industry or anywhere close to it when we started the company 2.5 years ago. We got into it because friends of ours, Garen Armstrong, who owns Shamrock Roofing, has been a friend of mine for, I don't know, probably close to 20 years here in Kansas City. And, we've had been in the place-based media business for a long time. We owned a digital signage company in about 150 shopping malls for from 2000 to 2010. We'd been in this space where we knew a lot about marketing and media and lead generation and all of that, but we just kind of saw a need, with Smart Tarps and just kind of slid in there. But it's a very interesting industry because you've got, two different thought processes that I see. And that's one, the perception that roofing companies are really just sales organizations and lead generation companies. And then the other side of it, that it's all about customer service and all of that. Two things can be true, but it does seem like there's like there's two paths that people tend to go down. And they're sometimes, at least what I've seen, they're not always great on both sides of the path. They tend to lean on one side or the other, from that perspective. I don't know if that's what you've kind of seen too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is it's crazy if you care about your customer base and you obsess over your customer base, you're going to have a longevity in whatever business you're in.
Yeah.
That's just you're caring about people. Like you're just doing that, you're running your business, you're driving it as a leader towards the customer first. If you the sales side of things, it's exciting for sales reps. It's exciting for like short-term stuff. Even private equity loves that. But at the end of the day, we can go on a tangent about private equity. Like I've seen personally a lot of PE, the majority of it. I have friends who have great experiences in that whole world of the sales side of things, sales organization. But the ones that succeed to build businesses to grow or be invested in that continue to be successful are the ones, the second bucket of people you're talking about, who care about the customer experience, who care about, they are a sales organization.
Yeah.
They care about sales, they care about production, they care about, but it's so much more than just like go out, knock doors, get claims and off to the races. There's major organizations that are failing all over the country because they invested in those types of roll-ups and people are leaving. I know them. I know these people personally. And like,
well, I
just
saw this
whole, to be around.
We just saw this big whole thing with BlackRock, right? With the big company up in Minneapolis, in that market. And then there was another one, I think was it in your market? No, it was up in like Massachusetts, that area that turned out to be another BlackRock. That a family that had been around for 75 years or more that they're just kind of cutting them off. It'll be interesting to kind of see how that whole that has had such an impact on the industry itself, at least in the short time that we've been in it, in 2.5, 3 years, not and obviously in the roofing space, but also in the HVAC space too, where PE is just kind of inundated and taking it over. But, I kind of look at it as we have always been about trying to drive innovation and, whether that was using, dynamic trackable QR codes so that we were able to have conversations with our customer base, say, look, we know they're working, right? We know that we're doing lead generation, right? The same thing, that we partnered with, Quick Quote for Roofs, 60-second quick quote for roofs. We partnered with them in August. And it's been an unbelievable benefit to our customer base, right? I mean, where, our customers, when they buy, our combo packs, they get a 90-day free, no obligation trial of 60-second roof quotes. And I mean, that's a gift, from that perspective. And, and the beauty of that is, look, after that 90 days, if you don't like it or you want to go with somebody else, great. You don't have to reprint your tarps with us or anything else, since we host the QR codes for all of our customers for free anyway. We just change it. And if you decide you're going to keep that trial, great. You get a phenomenal price because you're a Smart Tarp customer. But we're always trying to bring some form of innovation. We've got basically a new premium Smart Tarp called a Protect Tarp that will be launching in a week. That is more durable, uses HD graphics. That literally the QR codes on our premium line are so defined that you can literally scan the code from 200 yards away. I mean, now who's got a 200 yards of front yard? Not a lot of folks, but yeah, I mean, we're always trying to bring something new, innovative, and something that is a benefit to the industry in an asset to our customers. And great leads, as you and I, as well, are the cure, the cure to every challenge. So, yeah. I mean, from that perspective,
and getting good leads in your pipeline quickly and responding to them. Like, again, obviously ProLine has very similar values to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We want to innovate and be forward thinking. Why does what we do matter? It's because it is innovative, and innovative is like a fancy word. Are you caring about your customers? Are you trying to give the customer a real 5-star experience?
Yeah.
Smart Tarp does that.
Yeah.
Like when it was a very important thing. One of your competitors we used a long time ago,
sure,
for our roofing business, and people thought we were crazy because I was like, my crew thought we were crazy because it took a long time to set up. It was very forward thinking. At the end of the day, overwhelming ROI. And people are like, they're like, how is this possible? Because what you guys provide, Smart Tarp, really is what the customers want. Even if they don't know, it's what they want.
Yeah.
We're talking about homeowners here. You have to be thinking for the homeowner, because that's what ProLine does. We know what communication needs to happen, and the customer doesn't even understand. So we essentially just automate and force the hand of the contractor to do the right thing. We want to be forward thinking. It is a tool to help you actually give that customer what they really don't even know they need. And when you do that, you get a better experience. You get more referrals. You get more 5-star reviews. You obviously have, in your case, happier crews because the cleanup's better, happier customers because there's less, all the debris is better, and obviously a way to dominate neighborhoods, because without a little, don't get me started on yard signs. People are not even putting yard signs out in their yard. And I was like, guys, you can't just put a single yard sign there and just expect. It has to be an event.
Yeah.
You have to make it an event. This is a big deal. You're wrapping that customer up with your Smart Tarp love, and you're protecting that homeowner. If you don't think that way, you're going to get left behind. It's going to be that second bucket.
I agree with you 100%, of course. But you make a good point, though. You said, that what ProLine does, what Smart Tarps do, is we try to provide a service that the consumer really doesn't even know they need yet, right? And for years and years and years and years, I've trained and developed B2B one call close salespeople, because that's the industry that we came from. And the way that we used to describe that is, most businesses don't know they're walking with a limp because they've been walking with a limp for so long they don't notice the limp anymore, right? And that's kind of the same philosophy, right? Of understanding that, look, you didn't realize that you could do better until somebody shows you better. You didn't realize that you could be more valuable until somebody showed you how to be more valuable. And, our philosophy is always the value must exceed the price by such a large degree that the price doesn't matter.
Yes.
And, when you do that, regardless of your business, right? It doesn't matter what you do, who you sell to. If the value exceeds the price, you're never going to have to worry about whether or not you're selling or whether or not you're going to be in business. As long as the value exceeds the price, and believe it or not, if the value exceeds the price in such a large space, you never have to worry about hard closing people either. You'll have people buy from you because the value exceeds the price. And so I think that's that's the format that that ProLine uses to make sure that you guys hold on to your customers. It's the same thing that we do. I mean, there's a reason why our customers continue to buy from us over and over and over again, and it's because from our perspective, we know, as you were talking with yard signs, we did a study last year and looked at yard signs, truck wraps, sign banners, and smart tarps, and literally looked at the internal data and external data to see what had the highest scan rates with QR code usage. And in comparison to yard signs, truck wraps, and banners, we had a 300% higher scan rate, which is, I mean, and again, it's kind of hard to avoid smart tarps when they're, as big as they are, and the graphics are as big as they are in a house. But, it's yard signs. Somebody asked us, and every now and then we have somebody ask us, oh, do you guys do yard signs? And we were just like, I think that we'd be kind of, from my perspective, maybe smarter people might disagree, but if we sold yard signs, I'd be telling you that would basically be the same thing as me telling you that smart tarps don't work. So, that's, I mean, I, at least in the front yard, right?
Sure.
I mean, yard signs, I think, work in, if you're going to put it up at the intersection or, whatever it might be that you're trying to do. But my perspective is that if I sold yard signs to put in the front yard, I'd basically be saying, smart tarps don't do what we say they do. And so that's the reason why we focus on one thing and one thing that we're really, really good at. And that's smart tarps.
Here's how roofers make it home for dinner every single night without losing a single sale, even when they're one-man shows. Automate your communication with ProLine, the only communication-first CRM for roofers. Because when you fix your communication, you'll sell more jobs. Your weekends will smell more like sunscreen and backyard barbecues than that crappy gas station coffee. And all you got to do is ask these roofers.
Where we had about 200% growth, and I attribute that to incorporating ProLine.
But just with one automation, I was able to get 25 Google reviews.
It's been absolutely insane how quickly we were able to grow.
Now, ProLine's not going to win the beauty pageant, but it will save your Saturday. Now, back to the show.
I love what you're talking about, value exceeding the price. Our goal was, I didn't think about it that way necessarily because the word value kind of gets overused a lot, but our goal was that we sold the job before we got to the inspection.
Yeah.
And we wanted a callback to something. The customer said, it could be a referral. It could be, I see your trucks everywhere. I could see your yard signs everywhere. I could see that you cleaned up my neighbor's yard so well, and I couldn't believe how clean it was. This is what we always wanted to be.
Yeah.
I would have renamed my company a long time ago, Roof Ninjas. I know there's other Roof Ninjas out there, but I wanted to be the Roof Ninjas because I wanted to be like, we were never there except your new roof. And that was a huge, huge deal because customers, that was the callback. They would say, we'd open the door. Oh, hey, Cameron. Hey, John. Hey, whoever it was that was a sales rep. They'd already know who we were because of a lot of ProLine automations, because we sent them a bunch of educational introduction videos automatically before the inspection. That's part of what we wanted to do. But it was always a callback to something that we did because they saw the value. And then they didn't actually really care. You'd see them go through the proposal. Oh, I don't care. I'm going to get this one. They didn't care. And we were consistently, I'll say this and I'll say this 1,000 times. In both of our markets, we were consistently the most expensive or one of the most expensive contractors. So don't if you're thinking about, we were like a low price, a high volume. No, we were premium, high price, and people still saw the value exceeded our high price. So it was exactly what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to do all those things to have that value exceed the price.
And here's the crazy thing. Over the years, what I've found working with business owners and consulting with business owners is, I can say that expression, right? You want your value to exceed the price. But what most people don't understand is the formula for value a lot of times, right? And especially when you're presenting to a consumer, right? So, people have to understand that features and benefits equal value, right? But so if then you have to figure out, regardless of what you're selling, right? What does this consumer find value in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then what's the feature that you have, right? And then what's the benefit of that, right? Because a lot of times when salespeople, even some of the most experienced guys that I've met over the years, they can what they used to call just throwing up features, right? Just, oh, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this. But what they don't do is tell their potential customer why that's important. What's the value of that, right? Because we think they know.
Yep, that's a huge thing.
They do.
We're roofing. We're in the roofing space. We're in this tunnel vision. Of course, they know this is important, and we have to re-educate every new person, because we were mainly retail in Athens, and we had storm, but most people replace their roofs 1 or 2 times their entire life.
Yeah,
most of our customers never did it. You have to treat them like little babies.
Yep.
They had you to educate them on everything, and why it matters. I love that. It's very true.
Yeah, it to me, and I am an old school guy. I mean, I'll be 60, next year, and so I've been in direct B2B sales. Kelly and I launched our first company when I was 22. So I mean, we've been, doing this for a really, really, really long time. And I think a lot of the old school methodologies, I think that's part of the reason why I do enjoy the roofing industry so much, is because, it's from a sales perspective, lead cultivation, presentation, all of those things. Those are, that's my lifeblood. That's what I did and had done for so long. But I feel like, what I see so much of now is that I talk to young guys that are starting their companies about sales and stuff like that, and I tell them to go read books that are, you have to really dig for, because, they're so fundamental, right? Outside of, Napoleon Hill, or, those old school fundamentals, but there's so many others, and I was talking to a really good friend of mine who lives down in Texas, that we grew up together, and we'd both been in B2B sales and one call closing for most of our lives. And we laughed about, even something as simple as the methodology of overcoming an objection, agree, isolate, restate, overcome. These really basic things that in my mind, I don't even think about them anymore. Right. But if you don't teach people, all the little steps, then it's hit and miss. And when you're hit and miss and you don't know why something works and why something doesn't work, you never get consistency. And when you don't get consistency, guess what? You don't hang on to salespeople. And they leave, they jump, and man, you want to talk about an epidemic in this industry? Fuck. Oh, excuse me. It's crazy to me how fast people lose salespeople, or they quit, right? And I understand it. I mean, I've been hiring, straight commission, salespeople for most of my adult business life. And it's difficult, right? But, it is, I think there are methodologies that work better than others, but it's certainly about creating consistency for a salesperson and making sure that you give them the guardrails and the handrails in the beginning to make sure that they don't fall down the steps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's 100% true. You're right about the epidemic, because, I mean, a huge part of the reason ProLine exists is because we forced the hand for sales activity, for sales reps. It's really built off the sales reps perspective. It's not built off of, like, most CRMs are like leadership down. It's really sales rep up, because we know that most companies in the roofing space don't really train sales well. And they certainly don't emphasize follow-up, sales follow-up at all. And so things like Sales Transformation Group and Top Rep, those organizations are doing really well because they know how to teach sales reps, and there's just a lack of education. Yesterday, I was doing a podcast too. We're talking about how I was a terrible student at university. I shouldn't have gone to college. I graduated, great. But I should have spent those years doing things like you said, finding books, listening to podcasts, learning about business. I know a lot of my friends with MBAs who know nothing about business.
Yeah.
And it is, there's a lot of things it's just your education. If you don't like school like me, it's really hard for you to go to these conferences and workshops, to listen to books, to do all these things that you need to do, and then actually execute them consistently. And that's where it translates to, like, why do I need Smart Tarps? Why do I need ProLine? Because you don't have the education of understanding why this is valuable for you, because it's valuable for your homeowner. And it's like there's a disconnect from those core beliefs and core education for people. And I had to educate myself for years. I failed so many times for years.
And I tell everybody, that the greatest thing that you can do, I think, is never quit learning, right? I mean,
yep.
And in my office, which you can't see, but there's a great big greaseboard calendar in front of me. And on the very top of it, it says, what you're not willing to change, you've decided to accept. And it's in front of me every single day, right? To recognize, okay, what's working, what's not, what can I do different? Because if I'm not going to change it, this problem or this challenge or this circumstance is going to keep coming up until it hurts bad enough that I decide I don't want that pain anymore. And in business, dude, as an entrepreneur, you and I both know you're a glutton for punishment, but you're also
We're kind of crazy.
Yeah. And your desire for pleasure and happiness is at the same level.
Yeah.
It is, our industry is one of the very few places where you can fail at a higher rate than succeed and still succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, in sales in general is like that, right? But especially when you start looking at high ticket stuff, roofs and consumer and all that stuff, it would be great if everybody had an 80% closing percentage, but
Well, side note, I wanted to mention that because a lot of people brag about their 80 and 90% close rate. I'm like, they don't realize that they're actually failing because their pricing is wrong.
Right.
It's like, it's like you should, like, there are people who can argue 50% close rate, but like in general, you're probably going to close way less than it's just, that's the nature of it. That's human nature. That's the numbers game. That's sales in general.
Well, and one of the things that I've always preached for so long is knowing your numbers, because, and again, it's a little bit of a different perspective. Like from where I come from a B2B sales process, I'm very much what people would call a canned presentation guy, right? I'm all about a canned presentation. And it's primarily, again, it goes back to what we were talking about, creating consistency with, a sales rep, because if they don't have, a methodology, a canned presentation, then what happens is, well, one, they try something and it works one time. And then they go, oh, I closed that deal. So that's what I'm going to do on every freaking demo now. Right. And so, but then they go over there, but that's not part of the canned pitch. So then they go, oh, well, then I need to change this. And so then they sell something. And it just starts this perpetual process where there's no methodology. And I used to tell people, you're either in a slump, coming out of a slump, or on the verge of a slump when it comes to salespeople. So without a canned presentation, a methodology, or what they now call SOPs, right? Which I never knew what that word was until 2 years ago. We just call it a presentation where I come from. But with most, I think it's a challenge. And again, we were talking about being able to keep sales reps and be consistent with them. To me, that's a big part of it, is making sure that, again, there's a very standardized methodology, because guys are going to float back and forth. And if you want to knock them back in and keep them, so you're not having to spend the money to hire and spend the money to train and all that stuff all over and over and over and over again, you got to have that very specific process in order to keep everybody, going in the direction that you want them to go for your success and their success too.
Yeah. From a leadership perspective, I see a big problem with a lot of leaders not being transparent with numbers. Like, no, you said know your numbers. That's a big thing for me. I was not good at it. I had to learn over and over again, review my numbers, overhead, indirect costs, direct costs. And when I as a leader knew my numbers well, and I could be transparent with my team, my sales team, about why these things cost this, why do we need to hit these margins, and they could understand the transparency of the business, they had confidence in being able to overcome objections when it comes to price. If they wouldn't, because a customer can see in your face if you don't believe that it should be that expensive.
Yep.
And so that usually comes from leadership, like not being transparent about why we need to hit 40% gross profit. And most people are like, that's crazy in roofing. I'm like, no, it's not. It's like, and most people are like, we can only do 20, 25%. Like, how are you staying alive at those margins? And it's like, you have to know your numbers, just like what you said. I've talked about it thousands of times now.
Yeah.
Knowing your numbers as a leader and then being transparent with your sales reps, so they have the confidence to sell the product or service that you're selling, is essential for a consistent growth for those sales reps.
And again, I think, and you and I are singing from the same songbook, it costs so much money to hire, train, and develop salespeople anymore. And it's a whole hell of a lot harder now than it was, when, let's say, in one of my biggest companies that I built was our digital signage company. We at one point were the largest in-mall digital signage company in the country, in the knots in the 2000s. And I was flying salespeople all over the country, and we were a one-call close, organization. And when we would go into a market area to hire, it would cost me tens of thousands of dollars to, just to get one or two guys, by the time it was all said and done. And if we didn't have the process correct, if we didn't work with them and understand, and have a conversation with them to go, okay, because the salesperson, and not just the numbers of the P&L, right? But also the numbers of their activities. In other words, how many phone calls are you making every day? And I'm just using this as an example. Or how many doors are you knocking every day that get you X number of leads, which leads you to X number of presentations, which gives you X number of sales, which gives you X number of contingency contracts, which gives you, if you don't know, it's not going to work long term for you. You're going to have problems with inconsistency, insecurity. Numbers are, it's called the risk of insult is the price of clarity. Bottom line, you can't do it, you can't do it like this. You got to look at your numbers. You got to know, what am I good at? What am I not good at? What am I fantastic at? What do I suck at? But yeah, a guy said that to me one time. The risk of insult is the price of clarity. And it's so true that so many guys in both business and in sales and other things, they spend so much time trying to make sure they don't feel bad, and that and to keep the confidence level up and to feed that damn ego. Dude, I've lost so many millions of dollars. I lost an entire company when I was in my 30s because of my fucking ego, because that was the most important thing to me. And it's a lesson that's a very, very, very expensive lesson. But, it was one I had to learn, or I wouldn't be, doing what we're doing now. But as you can tell, there are very specific things that I think are very important when it comes to business, and when it comes to dealing with salespeople and teaching and as time goes on and we continue to grow in the industry, I hope to be in a position to try and do more teaching and helping people with their businesses on multiple levels outside of Smart Tarps as time goes by.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I keep thinking about numbers and how Smart Tarps can help people.
Yeah.
But you talked about all those KPIs, those key performance indicators. We talked about that. How many doors you knock, how many presentations, what's your close rate? That's also a skewed number. My close rate's like 80, whatever it is. We go back to that. All right. So people don't realize this, and shout out to Brad Akers, who really educated me down to the nitty gritty of what most roofing contractors spend to acquire a customer.
Yeah.
So CAC, customer acquisition costs.
Yep.
Crazy number. You better know it. And I promise you probably think it's a certain number and it's way higher. I'll just give you rough numbers. It was about $1,500 for me to acquire a customer. That's when I had a marketing agency with ad spend, with the close rate, because those leads are typically worse.
Yeah.
So the close rate's lower.
Yeah.
So how do I not spend $1,500 if my average ticket was like $16,000 and I was, after commission and everything, $4,500, $5,000 maybe, And so then I'm spending $1,500. Let's call it $4,500 of gross profit.
Yeah.
But I spent $1,500
Yeah.
to get that customer and pay commission, all the other things. So I'm making $3,000 gross off of every roof.
Yeah.
And I just bought
You're
that
basically
liability.
almost losing money at that point.
Yes. So people don't realize that that's a general thing. Let's call it, those are general numbers. 16 average ticket size. You better know that. You better know your average contract. You better know your average gross profit margin. You better know your average gross profit dollars as well, so that you can understand your customer acquisition costs.
Yep.
So don't do that. Everyone's always asking for leads. They're always like, how do I get any leads? Who do I pay? Who's the best agency? There is a place to do those things.
I agree.
But what Smart Tarp does is it drastically lowers customer acquisition costs. Because if you're dominating a neighborhood and you've got the yard signs, you've got everything's out there, you got the banners, you've got Smart Tarps, you have QR codes, you have an actual CTA, you have like a call to action with a QR code. You will acquire customers for a fraction of that $1,500, even $1,000. You're gonna be at a couple $100
If
your acquisition costs.
If that, I mean,
Yeah.
From our perspective, what we see is that literally almost 90% of our customers get a complete re-roof off of their Smart Tarps, typically off the very first residential deployment.
Yep.
And we actually guarantee our customers that if they don't get 100% return on their investment within 5 residential deployments, we'll buy them back. And
Yep.
of the thousands of roofing contractors that we've shipped to in the last 2.5 years, we haven't had to purchase a single setback. And I don't expect that we ever would. There again, and the challenge that you have too, John, is that, how many locations now, have a problem with yard signs, with the HOAs? How many of the HOAs won't let you door knock, right? So we've had people say, oh, the HOA is going to make a phone call because you've got a tarp with a brand on it. It's still a tarp. Okay. It's still part of the roofing process. They're never going to really get you to have to take it down, because it's necessary.
It's a laughable argument because like you could just tell the HOA president, hey, so you want these shrubs to get destroyed so that all your neighbors' shrubs are destroyed?
Exactly.
It's the greatest. I love it. I really do love that because I wasn't a fan of door knocking. We never did door knocking. We did door hangers, and we did do yard signs, but yard signs were getting taken down.
Yeah.
So I love the positioning that you're putting Smart Tarps in, because it's true. It's a needed, necessary part of the roofing process, and it still achieves probably way better, like you said, 300% better results.
Look, our goal again. We finished this, and I know we're getting ready. We're going to be running out of time here, but to me, it kind of goes back to kind of what we were talking about with value exceeding the price. Right? Our primary focus with tarps is protection, promotion, lead generation, and profit. If that's what we're doing that's our focus, that's our value proposition. And there are things you can spend more money on. I don't know why you would, but from our perspective, and I think if there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews that would probably agree with me, that there's for the value, the amount spent, the return on the investment, the ease of process in the setup, it's kind of a no-brainer, for any roofing company that's looking to, establish their brand in a market, protect the customer, promote and generate leads, and in a greater profit margin. If that's the goal, then that's why we're here.
I love it. Well, Dean, I think we talked about a lot of things. We solved a lot of the world's problems today.
We did. I don't know what else there's left to do.
So you guys can just hit repeat on this and you'll just do what we said. That'd be great.
That's it.
Thanks for coming on, and thanks for everybody watching Bigger's podcast. Until next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.